Hey guys, it's Oak. I'm back again with another video, this time on the heels of my last one, where we did a shootout comparison between the single button assistant and GNOME sequencer enhanced. That one we did with a Retribution Paladin. I've had some requests to do some other classes, so we will go ahead and try out an Unholy DK, see how those two compare. So let's go ahead and jump in. So the single button assistant is pretty easy to set up. There's really nothing in the way of that that you need to set up. You just drag the icon from the top right of your spellbook over to an empty spot on your action bar. You make sure that your class's abilities are all on action bars. And then you can go ahead and close the spellbook, and that's it. It's set up. My current talent build is the Mythic Plus layout for Sand Land. It's the one that I use with my sequence. And we're going to do the AoE target dummies. This is my gear. I'm 664 item level. And yeah, let's go ahead and try it out. So you have to target the mobs yourself. So I went ahead and just tab targeted. And then I will go ahead and manually hit the left bracket. That's what I have assigned to this key. You can also click this over and over if you want to click, and it'll work the same way. You'll see that the first thing that it's going to want to do is dark transformation. So with LVY, the icon doesn't change correctly all the time, so we'll just go ahead and live with that for right now. But let me go ahead and start hitting the button. So it did a dark transformation. It did unholy assault. It dropped a defile. It's one thing a lot of people were worried about, is that it wouldn't drop defile like it should, but it does. It did my death coil. It did vampiric strike correctly. It reapplied virulent plague when that fell off. Now hitting the button with my left key just so I can switch details so you can see what the DPS is. Right, you'll see that it is not firing slappy hands, which I kind of wouldn't expect it to. So we had a sudden doom proc. It took a few seconds to actually react to the sudden doom, but it did. Spamming epidemic. Virulent plague has 16 seconds left on it. It just reapplied. Alright, now we just took our virulent plague off of the target and it reapplied it right back. So it's really good at keeping up dots. Honestly, the penalty of the GCD doesn't appear to be that much of an effect on this. But slappy hands is not a big deal, because I would suggest not putting that into a sequence anyways. So I was proccing a Blood Beast with your vampiric strike. Yeah, it's doing pretty well. It's only doing about 3.7 mil DPS. And right now it's maxed out on runic power, so it's not really controlling runic power so well. I just reapplied Virulent Plague again. Yeah, I think I slowed down on my button tapping. But yeah, it knows what to do and when to do it. So that's pretty good. But let's back up. Let me pull off my pets. We gotta wait for all these dots to fall off. And get out of combat. There we go. We're out of combat. So that is AoE with the single button assistant. Now when it comes to my GSE sequence, you'll see that one of the issues it has is with Virulent Plague. I have a few different ways for you to combat that. And that is when you hear or see that Virulent Plague has fallen off, you can hold Shift Alt to reapply it. So let's go ahead and use the GSE sequence and see how many DPS it gets. So it also started with Dark Transformation. It got Unholy Assault off. Was doing Epidemic. Doing Vampiric Strikes. So the main thing we need to do is watch for Virulent Plague and when that falls off, which is right now. So I hold Shift Alt, it did an outbreak. I held Shift Alt for a second too long, so it did 2 outbreaks in a row, so basically I wasted one of them. The Blood Beast that popped. About 4.6, 4.7 mil DPS here as well. Yeah, the main thing is this is keeping up with the abilities that need to go off when they need to go off. The GCD extended cooldown penalty for the single button assistant is not as noticeable with this. So you see my Virulent Plague fell off, so it wasn't able to do any epidemics in that. Now, it was actually spamming Epidemic with 5 targets, whereas the recommendation is if you're using 6 or under targets, you actually only want to use Death Coil instead of Epidemic. So I'm going to go ahead and back off of this. I'm going to set my single target sequence to the right bracket, and we're going to run the single target sequence and see what happens, because with the AoE one and the single button assistant, the DPS was about the same. So the theory about some dot classes or casters or things like that not being as affected by the GCD penalty is correct. So it seems like it didn't hurt Unholy DK very much. So let me go ahead and change this real quick. So I'm going to go to Key Bindings, Unholy. I'm going to change this to be my single target sequence. Go ahead and save. Go ahead and close. Now we should see it using Death Coil instead of Epidemic. So here we go. Right now it's just spamming Vampiric Strike, put a Death Coil out there, dropped a Defile, Vampiric Strike, Death Coil, Death Coil. Virulent Plague was gonna fall off, but it was reapplied. There we go. Reapplied Virulent Plague. Now what's odd here is you saw with the single button assistant in this AoE situation, it would only spam Epidemic. It did not want to use Death Coil in an AoE situation like this. So as you can see, the DPS using Death Coil is the better route to go. It has a higher DPS. It's the right thing to do in this situation. So when it comes to that, the single button assistant, you know, it's coded in a certain way and it knows certain things, but it opted for one spell over the other, and at this time that spell was the incorrect one. So let me reapply my Virulent Plague. Yeah, so with Unholy DK, one of the most difficult things that I've found when using my sequence is remembering and paying attention to virulent plague and making sure that that stays on the target. If it falls off the target in the AoE situation, you end up with a whole bunch of downtime because it won't do an epidemic if there's not a virulent plague on the target. If you are doing the single target sequence, it reduces your DPS if there's no virulent plague up. So it's very important that you maintain virulent plague, and like I said, that's one of the most difficult things to remember. The other thing with Unholy Decay is it's very dependent on procs of your Blood Beast. So if there's no Blood Beast, then your DPS is going to be low. But yeah, that's the Unholy Decay in an AoE Mythic Plus situation. Let's go ahead and back off, and for Unholy Decay, what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and switch to my raid build, which is also Sand Lane. Alright, for the single target build, it does change some things around. It does use Army of the Dead and Raise Abomination. It does also have Apocalypse. So there's some differences in spells. This is what you'd use in single target situations in a raid. So because it's single target, we're going to head to a single target dummy. Since I changed specs, the single button assistant is no longer on the key. So we'll have to drag it back down to the key. And let's go in and start spamming the button and see how it does in single target. Start with Unholy Assault again. You see the icon doesn't want to change. Hop in Vampiric Strike. Death Coil. I don't know why my streamer bar disappeared here. I don't want to type in the command to make it reappear because that would be a DPS loss. Alright, so Virulent Plague fell off. Let's see how long it takes to re-add it. There, it just applied it. The Festering Strike. Just Raise Abomination. No, I'm sorry. Got a Blood Beast. Apocalypse. Festering Strike. Only doing about 875 DPS, and that's like at the top. It's like a lot of runic power is being wasted. Once again, it is not using slap hands. Just realize it's also not raising my abomination. So that, of course, is going to be a DPS loss. Now my sequence has Raise Abomination built into it, so it's a little different when it comes to that. It's also not dropping Death and Decay, so that's interesting to me. How it would drop Defile in the AoE build, but it will not drop Death and Decay in the single target build. It's probably not needed, but yeah. DPS went up a little bit, probably because of the Blood Beast proc. It's about 950,000 DPS. Go ahead and stop this, back off, get my pets off of the target, and wait a second to fall out of combat. Just wait for those dots to fall off. This is definitely not the most scientific comparison, as different things would, create different results. So all the dots are off. Everything's off cooldown. So let's go in with the sequence. You should see Raise Abomination will go off. It's probably also going to drop Death and Decay. So here we go. Yeah, immediately Raise Abomination. Just doing over 1,000,000 DPS. Dying down a little bit. Now my plague fell off. Reapplied it with Outbreak. Festering Strike in there. I also did not pipe Slappy Hands. Our Abomination is gone. We just did another Apocalypse. About 950,000 DPS. Let's wait for another Abomination to be up. Let's wait for that Dark Transformation as well. Oh, sorry, I gotta do an Outbreak. There we go, Virulent Plague is back on. This is using the GSE sequence and single target, so... I had a few questions regarding abilities that show up in my sequence when they're not in the talent build. The Mythic Plus build doesn't use Raise Abomination, it also doesn't use Apocalypse. So I've written my sequence in such a way that it will compensate for that. So if you don't have an ability and you have that ability still in your macro, it's going to skip over the ability if it's not there. So basically I have blocks in my sequence that have Raise Abomination and Apocalypse in them. Whereas if you're in the Mythic Plus build, it will do something else instead. So that's how it ends up working on single target and Mythic Plus as well, without having to change the sequence around. So, but with that said, this is doing about 950,000 DPS. It was peaking over 1,000,000. We just did another Apocalypse. We just did another Raise Abomination. Looks like we're going to do another Dark Transformation. When those three things go up, I bet the DPS goes back up over 1,000,000 again. Keep in mind 664 item level. I don't think I have things, the best stat distribution. I know I have champion items still. Both of my trinkets are still champion. But yeah, that is the single button assistant comparison to GSE. Don't know why I mounted there, but hey. So yeah, I plan to do some more of these. There's some other classes I want to compare. But as you see, when it comes to keeping dots up, the single button assistant is quite nice. But as far as DPS, GSE still wins out. So GSE is more difficult to set up. But it doesn't have that penalty. So with that said, if you liked the video, please hit the thumbs up. If you want to see more content like this, please subscribe. Make sure you comment down below. But thank you again for watching, and I hope you have a great day. See ya.